areas tend to stay German. Your Scotch-Irish area, which is what Augusta County is, Rockingham County, Shenandoah County is German. They tend to stick together. So just to define the Shenandoah Valley, we are right here. I think I'm sorry, that's right. We are right in here. Shenandoah River, one of the few rivers that flows north. So your North Fork and your South Fork. Your North Fork starts in western Rockingham County, and your South Fork starts here in Augusta County. Flows north around the Massanutten chain. You've got your Blue Ridge Mountains here defining the eastern border, and you've got your Alleghenies here defining the western border. And this is kind of a free run here of relatively flat land. Don't travel through here, so you know there's still hills. And this is the Massanutten range that runs right in the middle of the spine there. So we are over in this part here. But it's all part of the valley. So the watershed basically goes up to the Potomac, and up this is Harper's Ferry, where it goes into the Potomac River and flows out to the Chesapeake Bay. So all this watershed is the technical Shenandoah Valley. Geographically, though, it goes on up into take in all of Frederick County, that's in northernmost county, and into West Virginia, which was Virginia before the Civil War, obviously, but Jefferson County and up to here, and then down further south into the central valley of Virginia. This whole thing is called the Valley of Virginia, and it goes way down. And then culturally, it's further yet, and actually, this map needs to also have this green cultural part go over into West Virginia, because this whole area here is trade with the Shenandoah Valley. You can get through, you can get into West Virginia through Brock's Gap without having to go over a mountain. It's a major trade route there. You can also get over into West Virginia without going over mountains. You come in here at west of Winchester and come down this way. But when we talk about how the movement of the valley, when you're going north, you're going down the valley because it's downriver. And when you're going south, you're going up the valley because it's upriver. Very confusing. But that's the way the old folks refer to it. Your migration streams coming in, of course, most of you Scotch-Irish, your Germans, French also should be listed here. Quakers should be listed here. Most all of them are coming out of Philadelphia, later out of Baltimore also. Philadelphia is the main route out west and then down through the valley. The Great Wagon Road, we've got these towns here. We should have Strasburg should be in here also. But all these early towns, early villages are about 20 miles, roughly 20 miles apart, because that's how far you could ride the other day, was 20 miles. So these are all set about 20 miles. And then small little towns that spring up between that then later. But your main hubs are here. I'm actually working on a book now about the artisans of Newmarket, 1780 to 1930, which is going to, there's a lot of French coming into Newmarket, and there's some incredible French design furniture coming out of Newmarket that nobody would ever guess before. So it's some really exciting things happening in Newmarket. That's, again, a whole other picture. You got, coming in from the east, you got your English coming across. There's a, through the gap here at Stanton, Waynesboro, there's a gap there through the mountains that they're coming across, and also the Quakers are coming out of Pennsylvania too. So, and these people tend, like I said, have a tendency. Winchester's a real mix, because that's the first big town everybody gets to. A real mix of people in Winchester. Once you get into Shenandoah County, Woodstock, Strasburg, 70, 80, 85% Germans. Same thing with Rockingham County, which is where Harrisonburg is, which is where Beverly and I live. Mostly Germans. Then when you get here to Stanton, this is mainly Scotch-Irish, the Irish track. The Beverleys and the Peytons, and they're all Scotch-Irish. And when you go further, more Scotch-Irish down here, and then you get back And you can really read a lot of this furniture by these styles and things to be able to see. I mean, there are things about how cabinet doors are hung. The Germans would always hang them on a style at the edge of the piece of furniture, or the English would generally hang them off of the side of the piece of furniture. That goes back to they had a lot of linen presses that a whole drawer would pull out that wide open, or the Germans didn't have that. So there's a lot of these little things that allows you to read furniture, and once you really get to understand these tendencies and be able to say that that's probably made by a Scotch-Irish craftsman, trained craftsman, or German trained craftsman. And then you get into some of these things, which I'm working on a group of safes now, that changes. It starts out as Germanic rebuilt, changes to Scotch-Irish, but obviously the shop, after the Civil War, there's a need for craftsmen because a lot of the apprentices had gone off to war, young apprentices. Joseph Burkett lost 4 of his 5 apprentices to the Civil War. So after the war, his daughters start working in the shop. Things like that. So we see a lot of assimilation after the war because they need craftsmen. Okay, and of course then a lot of people kept going down, Wilderness Road, going into Tennessee and Kentucky. We see a lot of the influences, a lot of the Germanic influence and things going into Tennessee. And then some people that took the route down into North Carolina, down into the Piedmont region of North Carolina. You see a lot of the same tendencies there. Okay, Kurt and I first wrote about safes in 2012 American Furniture on the Henson Cale group out of Lexington. This was an especially exciting group because it demonstrated the cooperation between 2 different craftsmen. The cabinet maker, who was Matthew Cale, and the tinsmith, who was John Henson. They worked together to build these safes. And Henson actually came up with one of the terms that we have applied today to a certain form of safe, which we'll look at here in a minute. But so this was really an important study that we were able to put together and publish. John Henson was a London-trained tinsmith. We don't know a whole lot about him, unfortunately. He's in Rockingham County in the 1830 census and then disappears, and we have to trace him down after that. And we actually have not found the records of him coming over from London. So we don't know whether he was actually trained in London or whether he just said that. A lot of people would advertise that we hired three new cabinet makers from London. No. But again, truth in advertising, not so much. Not so much. And this is the safe. No, this is not the safe to this. This is the safe that Kurt Russ owns. This was actually the first closet safe that he discovered. And when I first saw this safe, I was like, who in the world is G.W.A. Shinky? And then I said, oh, that's George Washington. And why that spacing? Who knows? It doesn't look like George Washington at all. But this was made for McDowell, who had a tavern outside of Lexington. Here you can see the date that it was made, and J.H., the initials for John Henson, the tinsmith who made the tins. And this would have been called a closet safe in the period. And it would have been made for more of a public space. And again, we have to get this whole notion that pie safes are in the kitchen out of our mind. Yes, there were pie safes in the kitchen and in the pantry, but there were a lot of safes in public spaces and in bed chambers and in the back porches and everywhere. We did our study of about 40 different inventories from 1820 to about 1870 that were arranged by location of the objects. Almost all of them, especially in German inventories, had safes, 3 or 4 safes spread out through the house, and at least one safe in association with a bedstead. So keep in mind, when we're looking at ventilation, punch 10 allows for ventilation without enabling insects to get in. So that's what we're looking for, ventilation. The reason the safe evolves and becomes what it is in the Shenandoah Valley is kind of a perfect storm, because Shenandoah Valley had heat, humidity, also large families, especially the Germans. Germans generally did not have slaves, did not hire slaves, because they had 5, 8, 10 kids. And a lot of your German families would help each other during harvest. So you need to have ways to store lots of food for the hands that were coming in, the neighbors that were coming in to help harvest. So you needed these objects. Safes became the #1 piece of furniture being produced by cabinet makers from about 1840 to about 1870 in the German areas of Shenandoah. #1. So this is a wonderful safe. It has some interesting, so Cale was also, he was Scotch-Irish, and Henson was London trained, he was British. So this one has really some interesting characteristics that you see on a lot of English things, but also some things you see on German things too. And this is the one that's at the Museum of Shenandoah Valley. We sold from the John Will Palmer collection. This one again has that, again with that, he was big on the space, their space holders. Well, actually, we didn't really need it there. No, there's nothing but, whatever. Unless it's hard. But another wonderful one. You see this form in the same form, and would have been called a closet safe. And we'll see the next form that they also made these with no drawers and doors below, just up on high legs, which we see here. This safe turned up about 7 or 8 years ago in an abandoned house in Rockingham County. And it was funny, it was back when they were still having auctions at houses. And just a little ad and not much publicity for the sale. And, one of the things that people found out about this, nobody's going to know about it, Of course, people showed up the day of the sale and it's run down. And it brought $110,000. But one of those things, nobody's going to know about it. It's like, okay, well, we're invested, so now we've got to get it. Auctioneer's dream. But this one was made for the Armentrout Tavern, which again was west of kind of southwest of Lexington. And this one, is commemorating Andrew Jackson. So this was probably made 1825, about the time of the Battle of New Orleans. And actually, this here, it even says Hero of Orleans. This one actually traveled when they had the anniversary for the battle, or I guess it was Battle of New Orleans, in New Orleans. This one actually traveled for that exhibition. But again, you see here John Henson's initials. Generally, when you see initials on safes, they're not for the maker, they're for the owner. But we'll see another set of initials for a cabinet maker a little bit later. So it does happen. But you've always got to look and think about, is that the owner who was made for, or is that the craftsman? And it's kind of hard to tell. So you can see it's actually the same form, just without the doors on it. And here's this was kind of a fragment that was published back in the 60s here. And actually these doors turned up at the York show about 5 years ago without the rest of the frame, just the doors. And I think Kurt was able to buy those there. But again, this is a Washington safe. But here's Henson's marketing his improved closet safe. I just So love that term. This is improved closet safe. And so that's the earliest iteration of safe that we found. The term is printed, but as far as an object, saying that or a sign or anything like that, this is the earliest that we've seen. Again, this would date right around 1825 to 1830. And we'll stay here in the southern part of the valley, Botetourt County, Rockbridge County. This is more of your traditional type of safes. Safes can have drawers at the bottom, they can have drawers at the top, they can have no drawers, they can have 2 drawers here, sometimes they'll have a drawer here and 2 drawers up here. So there's a lot of different iterations of the form. And there's also single safes and double safes. We'll see a single safe here in a little bit. There's also side, so there's all kinds of different forms. One thing that this slide illustrates is, for some reason, a lot of the safes in the southern part of the valley have this large area, this large frieze or large rail at the top, and this is hollow up into this is hollow up into here, and your shelf is here. Your shelves always run parallel to your door rails. So your shelf's here, so you've got all this extra room up here, but I'm not sure what, unless you're putting a large crock or something in like that, I'm not sure why it would be, but we've probably seen 20 or 30 safes from this area that all have that same large area there at the top. And none of them have a little shelf back there or anything like that, at least none that I've examined. So it's kind of something we really can't really explain, but it does seem to only turn up the safes from that area. Yes?
On the left piece of furniture, right above the door, is that a pull-out shelf?
Up here?
No, above the drawer.
Above the drawer? Oh, here. No, you're seeing the turnbuckle. That's the turnbuckle holding the door is what you're seeing there. That is a good, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know if we've seen any safes with a mixing board or something like that. And here's just a group of tins, of different styles of tins we see from the southern valley. You see a good many with structures. There's also some tins out of Rockingham County that have houses, but there's numerous ones with churches and other architectural renderings. There's a whole group of these safes out of Rockbridge County, and we call this a tobacco leaf. I'm not sure exactly what it's supposed to be, but lots of different styles of this kind of a bowl with these leaves coming up out of it. And this same shop, which we have not identified yet. ABCs, really an unusual one here. We see the star a lot in the southern part of the valley, not in Rockingham, Shenandoah County. This seems to be more of a Scotch-Irish English kind of design element, but this is the only one we've seen with the ABCs running with it. Was it made to be used in school? Maybe? Who knows? Interesting. This is one of my favorites. I call this the Space Monkey. That tinsmith, I think, was on something that day, because that is one of the most modern looking designs that I think I've ever seen on a safe. But you can see a little thing, there's a heart, so there are elements that you can pick out, but all those together is just kind of crazy. Ears, his hat, he's ready for a party. We'll move up now, we'll move down the valley to Augusta County, which is where we're at now. Again, Augusta County being mostly Scotch-Irish and British. We see this large framed safe a lot. This style here a lot in this county. This is based on a 15th, 16th century English form. Primitive box forms that had, instead of punch tins, tin would have been too expensive or too hard to get them. They had fabric coverings, loose, coarse, very coarse, but not, insects could not get through it, but it also gave ventilation. Colonial Williamsburg has, I think, 2 of them. Of course, the fabrics have been replaced on them. But they're illustrated in Ron Hurst and Jonathan Brown's book on the furniture in the Colonial collection. So that's what these safes are based on. And these are all crimped tins. So your basic tin size that could be bought was 10 by 13. You could get ones, you could get 12 by 14, 15 also, but 10 by 13 was the standard form. Most of these tin panels were coming in from England. That's where the tinning was being done. They had that process. And remember, tin, that's really only half description of what these panels are. They are tinned sheet iron. So they were shortened to tins, but there are no such thing as tins. They're tinned sheet iron. And these would have been really bright, shiny silver when they were originally made. The tinning would have all been still on. And that kept them from rusting. So these are crimped together, and some of these have braces behind the tins so that they'll stay rigid. Some of them don't. And then we have a single safe here, which is extremely rare. There's probably in the account books, Alexander's account books, there's 10 double safes for every single safe listed. But they would make these also. A lot of these are made out, the ones that are painted are made out of yellow pine or poplar. The ones that are not painted are generally walnut, sometimes cherry, and then later oak, which we'll see. But these are wonderful large safes. I mean, this one you could almost crawl up in. It's like this big, huge things. A lot of them will have, when you look at the shelves, they'll have meat stains and things on them. They'll have, how the salt will eat into the wood and make it fuzzy. You'll see that. So these were definitely really meant to be used. When you see this one, you see a little bit down here, a little bit of rust. A lot of times you'll see safes, and especially on the end tins at the bottom tins will have rust. They'll have rusted out across the bottom. And that's the condensation. So you're putting warm bread in or something warm in there, closing it up. The condensation is forming and running down the tins. And over the years, it doesn't happen overnight, but over the years, that condensation will build up enough times that it'll rust out the bottoms of those tins. Now, when you see like sideboard safes and these really formal safes that were not in the kitchen area, in the domestic private areas, you won't see the rust on those because they did not have hot foodstuffs in them. But that's how you can kind of tell where a safe was used at.
What are the value of these pieces today?
Okay, so this one, if this one came on the market, extremely rare, wonderful yellow paint. This is a screamer. Those legs are perfect. Look at those spikes, all full height. That safe would probably bring 20 or 25,000 today. This one has lost its spikes. Used a little bit more of a great wear, good green paint. This would probably bring 6,000 to 8,000. This double door. Now, if you had one of these that had been refinished, rusted tins, feet down to there, you pick it up for $800. I mean, so they are available if you want to. If you enjoy doing restoration and you can do good paint, you can pick these up and make them look really nice. Again, the Alexander shop still in Waynesburg. The Alexander shop starts about 1815. There are, there's probably 10 or 12 of their day books and journals that are extant, and we got to study a lot of those, and just a treasure trove of information. That shop ends up morphing into the Basic Wits Furniture Company in Basic City, which was right there at Waynesburg. and was making furniture on up into the 1950s. Did a lot of church furniture, built a lot of church furniture, oak pews, things like that. So a long tradition of cabinet work coming out of this initial shop. But these, a little bit later, again, these are soldered tins, and they're putting little strips there and soldering the strips. And see these Victorian pulls on these? So when I first saw this safe, we had this from years ago. First saw it, I was like, oh gosh, somebody put these Victorian pulls on. That's just terrible. And I took one of them off. I'm like, there's nothing else on here. This has always been on here. Started looking. We found another safe with those. We found a blanket chest with those. All of them look like they should be 1840, 1830, 40, 50, but they're making them in 1870 and then buying these Victorian pulls and putting them on. So that just kind of shows your longevity of how long some of these forms were still popular and still needed. And when we get to Phil Baker, we'll see that they go on 50 years beyond this yet. And this is a wonderful Tiger Maple. You can't really see the striking in this, but Tiger Maple safe out of the Alexander shop that we sold a couple years ago. I think this one brought right around 20,000. But a wonderful safe. We don't see much Tiger Maple furniture. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering, was there a popular type of wood used for the bodies of the safes?
Walnut, a lot for walnut, especially anything in a public area. Walnut, some cherry. But then if it's painted, poplar, and yellow pine. We see a little bit of Tiger Maple in the valley furniture. I think a lot of it got carried out of the valley over the years. You have to remember that a lot of stuff, we are repatriating things to the valley now from all over the country. Things that got away back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. But we do have ads for cabinet makers advertising that they're they're wanting figured maple lumber. So we know that they are making some, and this is a wonderful example of a Tiger Maple safe here. Staying in Augusta County, this is the RDH group. See these? Now this is the maker, RDH, Robert D. Hensley. I've had one of those wonderful moments when you discover who somebody is. And we had looked, there had been people who had tried to identify these safes. They first thought they were coming out of Wythe County because it looks like a Wythe County tin. Then they thought they were coming out of Shenandoah County. But all the ones that I had located and was able to identify all come out of Augusta County. And a lot of them right in the Waynesburg area that come out originally out of families. So I really started looking and finally found Robert D. Hensley listed as a cabinet maker. And he had a couple sons that worked with him. And then he went into strictly making coffins and things like that later in his life. But he always had these tins. And I don't know that he's making the tins. By this point, a lot of the tins are being made in the shops as opposed to being made by a tinsmith. But I think it's a good possibility. There was a tinsmith in Waynesboro who did have family connections to Wythe County, and I think it's a good chance that he was the tinsmith making these tins similar to the Wythe County tins. I'm still working on that, but there's probably 15 or 20 of these safes. All of them are dated. I think the earliest one, that says dated 1860. I was dated 1860. No, this one's 1860. This was dated 1860. I think this is the earliest one, and I think there's one dated 1872. I think so. But again, this large kind of box form with the tin panels going on. This is a little sweetheart. We had this in the exhibit. This is only 27.5 inches high, so it's only about as tall as the back of your chair, maybe. Just a very finely, extremely finely made little thing. The tins are only this big, so they cut the larger tins down proportionally. It's got a little shelf in the back, right up here. It comes out about halfway. Little shelf up back there. I think this was probably to go on a dressing table or maybe even a low bureau in a lady's chamber for her delicates and things. We see some small cabinets like this being made in Augusta and Rockingham County that have open shelves in that are more like a clock frame or clock hood form and stuff. And we know those are in, we're pretty sure those are in ladies' dressing chambers. So I think this is a little ladies' cabinet. It is a little sweetheart with good family history in Augusta County. Here's probably one of the most well-made safes that we got to study. This is out of Rockingham, right on the Rockingham Shenandoah County line. So you're right. You're purely in the German area here, and this was obviously made for a public space. This applied moldings here on the drawers, these inlaid kite, little maple inlaid kite form, escutcheons, wonderful yellow paint on the tins is original, as opposed to usually what we see the green tins, which we'll talk about those in a minute. Really delicate legs. This is all walnut, and then yellow pine secondary wood. And you see a lot with these galleries, these nice little cutout galleries here. These are always dovetailed. And so this is coming out of a very well-established cabinet shop. We have probably 5 or 6 possibilities, but we have not been able to pin down the exact shop that is making this group of tins, and this group of safes. These tins, and again, I think this is a tinsmith making these and selling them, because I just found one of these, a safe with this, what we call a chopper tin. Here, look at these. Here's kind of a sampler of what we call chopper tins. It almost looks like the old food chopper that people would use. So that's what I saw when I saw these, a food chopper. You can also get a wagon spring out of it. I don't know why you would have a wagon spring in your safe tin there. But there are patents that show almost this identical form as a wagon spring. But, I mean, obviously, this is not made by this person. So, this is being influenced by that, or vice versa, I don't know which. Pretty much all of them have what we call these wagon wheel or quarter fans in the corners. And then the one I found yesterday over here at Expo has these tins in a Page County safe. And I know it's Page County because of construction things that are, that only seem to show up in Page County, which is just over the MESDA mountain from Rockingham. So you can get into Page without going over the mountain, actually. But there's probably 50 of these safes with these tins. A few of them have come from over in Greene County. So they're kind of in a 4 or 5 county area that this design shows up. And I guess it could be that it's just such a popular design that everybody wants it. But I've almost got to think that it's that at least some of them are being made in a tin shop and being sold. Maybe not that's kind of crude, but I don't know. Who knows? We get our kind of the way we think about things, and we let that influence, what we see. But these are all right here. I haven't seen any of this design on safes out of the central Shenandoah Valley area. Now they're making safes in Pennsylvania. At least they've got punched tin panels. I wouldn't call it a safe. They're making them in, great safes in Wythe County, Eastern Tennessee, great safes there. Making safes in Ohio. You don't see punched tin safes in New England because they're using screen up there to get the same effect. Plus they don't have the heat and humidity up there that we have here. But the best safes are coming out of the valley. Just saying. And I'm not prejudiced. Here's a group out of western Rockingham, or I'm thinking more down eastern Pendleton County, which is right across Mountain North through the gap into West Virginia. What ties all these safes together is not only the tins, which are eagle tins. We see more eagle tins in Rockingham County and Pendleton County than any other place. Shenandoah County has some, but you don't see hardly any eagles outside of this three county area. I don't know why. But what's really interesting about this group of safes, and there's probably 15 of them we've identified, is the ends come out. So this end comes out. So this frame here, on this end, is identical to the door frame. So this is showing piecework within a shop. So they've got these guys that are making the doors and the ends, and then you've got a couple guys that are making the frames, and maybe they're interchanging. Just I'm not saying they're distinctly making that. And then I think then they're sending them out to the tin shop, and the tinsmiths are putting them in, because all of them, they're very well-made safes, but all of them have really crappy ways of holding the tins in. And some of them are worse than this. Just little pieces of ripped up, wood that they're nailing in here. So this doesn't look to be the same type of work that this does to me. So I think maybe they're sending these frames out to a tin shop, the tinsmiths are putting them in, and then bringing them back to the cabinet shop. That way, having these you can take them out. You don't have to worry about, having to get into it to put the tins in and everything. Because it doesn't really give you any better access, because there's no extra room. Once you open this door, there's no extra room over here that you can't get to. So it's not an access thing. I think it's strictly a construction idea. But these are just wonderful, these turnbuckles, and a really interesting group of tins. And they come with both what we call the War Eagle, which is always facing right and has arrows, and then the Peace Eagle is always facing left with olive branches, or whatever you want to call them. You call them olive branches. There's other types of eagles in Rockingham County. There's groups of both of these. There's the crested eagle. There's probably 10 or 12 different eagle designs coming out of, like I said, Pendleton, Rockingham, and Shenandoah County. These are absolutely being made for the dining room. They're all walnut, and they're extremely well. I mean, this was again one of those things that we run into in the valley a lot, is trying to identify the cabinet makers. So I knew Eli Andes was a cabinet maker because of his great, I guess 3 great granddaughter who had 5 pieces of his furniture. And she said, my great-great-great-grandfather Eli Andes made these. There's no doubt. And so I found Eli Andes right where we're supposed to be, Green Mountain area, Rockingham County, right in the middle of the county. And in every census, he's a farmer. Everything about him is a farmer. Well, this is just like an old wives' but these are coming out because we'll see some more stand tables and stuff, Chester drawers. This is an established cabinet shop. And one day, I was looking for something else, and I ran across on the internet Eli Andes' obituary. And it said he died, I think he was, he was, 60? Oh. I didn't do that. He was 60 years old. He died at 60 years old due to many years of sawdust. Ingestion. Yeah. And I'm like, bingo, we got it. One of those aha moments. But he has never listened to the census as a candidate. Again, farmers much more in the German communities. Farming is a much more well-respected profession. Plus, the census are always being taken in the summer. So in August, you go into the census. What are you working? I'm farming. That's what he's doing. He's farming. He's doing his cabinet work in the winter. His son was working with him. There's 2 other people working with him. So he is. Above and below. uses that forever. Boom, everything he makes has got that. Another safe, this one actually came out of the family. And you see the plate on the shelves, stand-up plates or platters. So there you go. It's being made from the dining room. I'll go off subject for a second and talk about green paint. So, green paint on the tins. Growing up, 80% of the safes I remember seeing green paint on the tins. Carson put up an old antiques dealer in Mount Crawford and a furniture refinisher, restorer. Always, when he refinished the safe, he always painted the tins green. And I asked him one day, I said, Carson, why do you do that? He says, because they were always painted green. I said, well, why? Because I don't know, it's always painted green. So, Susan Buck, if y'all know her, she's a paint analyst from Williamsburg, top one in the country. She came up and spent a day with us doing the paint analysis of our house. And I was talking to her, and she said, well, have you heard about the arsenic green study that the Winter's doing? And I said, no. She said, well, arsenic green is deadly, and it was something that was, so I started looking, Paris green is used as an insecticide. I started looking in some paint newspapers and stuff, and I come up with green paint repels insects. So there you go. That's why they painted the tins green. It's just an extra way to repel insects. So that's why you see so many green painted tins. I haven't published that yet, but I'm working on putting a little article together on that. So. Again, a wonderful little corner cover. Look at that. Eli Ames, there's his tins. He loved that fill font. And this is a very distinctive skirt. So if you look here, look at his chest. This one came down in the family. See the cut out of the skirt? Cut out very, very distinct. Unfortunately, this one is in Georgia right now. I'm trying to get it back up here. But I would love to get my hands on that little puppy. Oh, that's incredible. He ebonized all of his half columns and his turn blades and stuff. Again, the black was thought to keep down rot and repel insects too. So I think that's one reason that some of that is being, here's stand tables. Again, we see this foot, see that little those turnings, it just keeps it going. So, yes?
How did they ebonize?
I do not know that. I don't know. I should know, but I don't. I do know that it's very hard to get off. You see refinished pieces that you can see just a little bit of the ebony, and I know they just scrub trying to get it off. But I do not know. Here you see that, that treatment on the fruit. And these are all fan. And then there's